21 verse 30. We're talking about an ox that gores. Okay, so we had said yesterday, if an ox gores a man or a woman and the person dies, you kill the ox, but the owner of the ox is innocent. Vim shor nagachu, but if the ox had gored previously, then and it kills a man or a woman, then the ox is stoned and the owner is also put to death. It doesn't mean the owner shall die. We're going to see it means that we didn't do the Rashis on this. In verse 29, if the ox had gored yesterday or the day before, so it had become what's called a muad. It had the owner was warned, and nobody was guarding it. Hold on. So then, under those circumstances, if he miss isha, if it kills a man or a woman, and the ox is stoned, and also the owner is put to death. Rashi says, for once the ox gores 3 times, then it becomes a muad. It's like it was warned. Vehemis ish, and if it kills a man, because it says ki yigach, I might think it only killed him by goring. And miso, hello guys, bringing the home. Oh, of course, that's why I told you I'm here. Okay, come on in. Ezra, come sit. You got a chumash? We'll get another one. Here, sit next to Benjamin. He's a Kohen. If it kills him either by goring or kicking or pushing, also the owner shall die. But it doesn't mean. So here's an example where the oral law helps us understand what the written law says. The oral law says the written law says the owner is put to death if the ox had gored 3 times and then killed somebody. But the oral law means bidei shamayim, he's put to death through heaven. Yachol bidei adam, I might think he's put to death on the basis of man, says the verse, Mos yumas hamaker rotzeachu, the one who struck shall surely die, he is a murderer. So you don't die. So even though the text says he's put to death, the oral law says no, he's not. The oral law says God will put him to death. Chapter 21, verse 30 now. So the oral law basically causes, what's the matter, Colby? Right there in the corner we have kippot. Right there. Right there. How many do you need? Come here, sit next to us, Colby. I'll go grab a chumash. There's not any of these types. Oh, there's no more? Yeah, you got to go upstairs and you'll see another one like these. The red ones upstairs. No, he's going to go upstairs. Okay, so that's actually the oral law is basically saying the opposite of what the written text, because the written text says he's put to death, but the oral law says he's put to death from heaven. And then the next verse says, "Im kofer yushat salav," in the ransom shall be imposed upon him. So if the ransom is placed upon him, then he will redeem his soul with by paying a ransom. The ransom is what he has to pay. So what does he have to pay? What's the ransom? Steve, what would you say the ransom is? No, but how do you assess the money? So look at the Rashi.
No, it's about the value of, according to Steinsaltz, the amount is determined by the objective criteria used for assessing the value of the person. Now, I'm not going to get into how you assess the value.
Yeah, there's ways you assess it. They assess it today. You determine how much a person's earning power is. So that's how they determine the power. That's how they do today. Like when when the life insurance or the insurance companies, they determine when they have to do a settlement. That's what they figure out. So they have their formulas. But what the Talmud says, how do you determine the life of the person? You say, if this person would be on the slave market, how much would he be sold for?
But isn't every life priceless though?
Yes, but they have to put a number on it. They had this after it was a lot very famous, like after 9/11, you had to determine all the people killed, how much each person's value was. And if somebody was like a hedge fund trader, the damage to the family was more money than the person who was the custodian, even though both lives are worth the same in the eyes of the Lord, in the eyes of the insurance companies, they determine it that way. Jeff, you were going to point something out.
Fishing gets the high side.
The what?
No, that fishing gets the high side.
Is that true?
Well, yeah, of course.
Look,
Pay back, the person who killed him because of the negative value.
but the Talmud does have a debate. The Talmud says you redeem his soul. The Talmud has whose soul? How do you determine the value of which person? There's two possible people. There's a debate. The main Nizak, the main Nizak, are you doing the value of the one who was damaged, the victim of the slave? That's Rabbi Shmuel's position. Rabbi Akiva says the main Mazik, the value of the owner that did the damage. So there's two possibilities. You could either determine that the person, okay, Reuven's ox scores Shimon and kills him. So now Reuven has to pay. He could either pay the value of his own life as a ransom to the family of Shimon, or he could pay the value of Shimon's life. So that's a dispute in the Talmud, which value you assess. So that's the main dispute. Okay. Hold on. Yes, you had a question, Ezra? Hold on 1 second. Hold on, this person is calling me. Okay. So we go on. If it goes a boy or a girl, like this law shall be done. What does that mean? Rashi says, Ben shu katan, o bachi katana. If he kills a boy who's a minor or a girl who's a minor. Why do we have to specify a minor also? Rashi says, because earlier it stated, if it kills a man or a woman, and my thing is only liable for the adults. That you're liable for the adults and the minors. Now you might think you're not responsible for goring a child because if the child gores you, they're not responsible to pay. So you might think that if you gored a child, you're not responsible. But
go back to the same exact argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael about the main Mazik or the main Izak.
Oh, is the door open? Can you open the front door? Somebody's trying to get in. Somebody must have. Somebody locked it. And then check that it's open.
And we're talking like younger than bar and bat mitzvah. Is that minor?
Yeah, hold on. There's a footnote here. The footnote here, although we have learned that a murderer's penalty is the same regardless of the victim's age, the Torah repeated this lesson regarding an ox scoring children. One might reason thus: it is uncommon for an ox to gore an adult, for domesticated animals are generally afraid of adults. An animal that would attack an adult must be an intrinsically vicious animal, therefore must pay a ransom if it kills an adult. However, oxen are not afraid of children. If so, its having gored a child does not prove that the oxen is the intrinsically vicious animal. Therefore, the owner should not have to pay a ransom because it's regular behavior. It's a little bit counterintuitive.
It's also, it's almost the opposite of what you think, is it's a child who doesn't necessarily know the ox is dangerous. In other words, the adult is supposed to have developed a healthy fear of things. Kids may not have that fear. So it seems strange to put that on the ox.
Yeah. It's not intuitive. I'm sorry, Shoshana, yeah.
No, then you have trouble figuring out the value anyway, if you have to pay, because if you have a 10-year-old boy, you would say as the mother, well, he's going to grow up to make millions of dollars, and so we need to be compensated on the value. We talked about the value of adults.
So they would say, the Talmud says for the Talmud's answers, you put it on the market, and the market would determine it. You put what would it go for on the slave market. So it's just, yeah, I know that's what the Talmud's right. It's a little bit of there's a lot to do with slavery in this portion. The Talmud has two types of slaves, the Hebrew slave and the Canaanite slave. And now here's the next one. Next verse. You open the door, you let our friend in?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Im Eved Yigach Hashor, if the ox will gore a slave, O Ama, or a female slave, Kasef Shoshim Shkalim Yitain Ladunav, Vashor Yisakel. So then you give 30 shekel to the owner, and the ox is stoned. So we see from here, by the way, even though we have this concept of slavery in the Torah, the ox that kills a slave, it's treated like it kills a human being, and the ox is put to death. You got a problem with it, Ben? You're gonna.
Yeah, well, it could be opposite of that. Could be that the ox has destroyed a valuable property, like being a slave. There's nothing to do with human.
It could be that, but if an ox destroys a valuable property, it's not put to death. It's only if it kills a human that's put to death.
It's brutal.
If the ox scores your Rolls Royce, it's not put to death. Rolls Royce,
Why not?
that's the law. The law is it's not.
If the ox scores his Rolls Royce.
You have a Rolls Royce, Steve? So here we see that there's a fixed amount for a slave. Im Eved o Amah, Canaanim. These are Canaanite slaves because the Hebrew slave is not considered a slave. A Hebrew slave is considered to be a person, a regular person who's just in like a signed contract of service for a limited number of years. But a Canaanite slave is considered a slave, and so this is a penalty. It's a penalty. It's a fixed amount. No matter if the slave was 100 years old on their deathbed, or or basically like in prime shape. He gives Shloshim Shkalim Yitain. He gives 30 Shkalim. He should give. And Gzeret HaKatufu. This is a verse. Bein Shu Shava Rashi says, Bein Shu Shava Elef Zuz, Bein Shonu Shava El Dinar. Whether he's worth 1,000 zuz or a dinar. Shekel Mishkalo Arba'a Zehuvim. Shem Chatzi Unkiya Amishkal Yashar Shal Kolonia. Okay, so he has to pay 1,000 zuz. Whether it's worth 1,000 zuz, whether it's worth a dinar, he has to pay. So that's what it is. That's what it is.
I thought it's a fixed rate.
Yeah. Whether he's worth 1,000 zuz, whether he's only worth a dinar, you have to pay 30 shkalim. And then it gives the weight of the shkalim. So it's a fixed amount. You let him in? Was the door locked?
It was locked, yeah.
On the bottom or the top?
Top one.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now we go on. Thank you, Moshe. Next verse. V'chi yiftach. You did excellent with your mission. Appreciate you. Next verse 33. V'chi yiftach ish bor o yikra ish bor v'lo yichasenu v'nafal shama shor o chamor. Now we have all of Baba Kama. We had in the beginning of this. If a person opens, this is a person who places a hazardous item in public. What's the responsibility? If a man opens a pit or he digs a pit and he doesn't cover it, then the ox or a donkey falls into the pit. So what does it mean if he opens a pit or if he digs a pit? When he opens a pit, the pit was there and he just uncovered it. Or he digs it. So the Gemara says, if he's liable for opening it, for sure he's liable for digging it. So it's to tell us the following case. Let's say the first person dug the pit for 7 feet deep, and the next guy comes along and digs the pit for 3 feet. Who's the one who's responsible? The second guy is the one who's responsible. What?
I'm not sure how that works. Why is the guy with the 3 feet responsible?
No, the second guy. Oh, because he's the one who made it to the point. He's the one who made it to the point where. Let me read the footnote. It explains it. A pit 9 tefachim deep is considered capable of causing injury to an animal, but not capable of causing its death. A pit of 10 tefachim deep is considered capable of causing the animal to die. The case of one who digs a pit 9 tefachim deep, and then another deepens it by an additional tefach, that's the subject of a dispute in the Talmud, Baba Kama 51a. So we did it just 44 days ago. So Rashi here follows the opinion of the sages, this is the majority opinion, who say that the one who dug the 10th tefach, the one who digs after someone else digs, is fully responsible for any damage caused by the pit. He's completely responsible. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi argues and say that they share the responsibility for the injury. Now, this is, I think, also American law. Like if somebody has driven a car right up to the edge, and another person comes and pushes the car right over the edge, the one who's responsible is the guy who pushed the car right over the edge. He did the last part. So even though the guy who put it right up to the edge left it in a dangerous position, the guy who pushed it over the edge will be responsible, I think. So that's like this, according to the rabbis, the one who did the last act, the proximate cause, is the one who's fully responsible.
Also in Hilchot Shabbos, no? If somebody sat in front of a door opening and because there was a deer there, only if the second person comes and basically blocks it off, are they responsible for tzayid, right?
There's two openings to the house, and you're not allowed to trap an animal on the Shabbos, and the first guy shuts one door, but there he didn't really do anything because the first guy didn't do anything because the other door is fully opened. So the other guy shuts the door and closes them in. So it's not necessarily the best example.
No, I'm saying even if the opening itself, it was like, let's say 10 tfachim. I'm just giving that example.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And he was only blocking, like, let's say 7 or 8 tfachim, and the second person came and put the chair next to him.
Yeah, but that's not also a precise example because 7 or 8, if the opening is 10 tefachim and the guy blocking off 7, he's not blocking off anything. The guy can easily get out. But in this case, the guy who dug the pit 9 tefachim is capable of causing injury if the animal falls in. It's just that the second guy added on to it. And now all of a sudden the first guy is not responsible anymore. So that's the issue, according to the rabbis.
Why do you think this whole section is here?
Why are we talking about civil laws, is what your question is.
Why?
So the point is, it's a very good question, Steve. And not only that, it's next to Sinai. So Rashi says it's to teach us that just like the laws at Sinai are the laws of honoring one's father and Shabbos, and also these laws, these civil laws are are given at Sinai. The second thing is, it's to remind us that we can't come close to God unless we're meticulous about guarding the civil laws, the laws between our man and fellow man, that this is a very essential part. And the Jewish faith has its own approach to these laws that's different in many cases from the common law in the area. Yeah, Moshe.
Well, where's the place?
We're up to chapter 21, verse 33. What page is it, Shoshana?
411.
It's page 411.
Where's what? Where's what? 21, right?
Chapter 21, verse 33.
I do it in English.
You got him? You got him, Moshe?
I guess, yeah.
So, Steve, does that answer your question?
I mean, it's a good answer.
Thank you, thank you. And another answer that Rashi gives is to tell us that the high court, had to be next to the temple. So the high court would meet on the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is where the Beit HaMikdash
This
was.
is civil authority, religious authority, on the side of the sun.
Exactly, but we don't call one civil authority. We call everything religious authority. It's like the before there was Iran, which had theocracy. This was a theocracy. To make 1,000,000,001 distinctions between the evil regime there and what the Torah is teaching, 1,000,000,000 distinctions. We're so far apart from them. But the idea is that even the civil laws come from God, and they're dictated by the Torah.
Like our Supreme Court.
And Amida, we say Ashiva Shoftenu, which is for everything, not only the big stuff.
Exactly. That the civil court, that this
Who
is
administered?
what?
Priests administered this law? The civil-
No, there were judges. There was court. There were judges.
Who administered the court?
The judges.
I'm trying to understand the setup. If you have a religious authority,
That's the Kohanim.
right, And then you have court.
and the Nevi'im, the prophets, the courts.
Courts are, how do they get to, they appointed by somebody?
So the courts were initially appointed by Moshe through prophecy, and then there were students sitting there, and the judges then appointed the other people to take their place.
So it's they're themselves.
Well, they appoint us from the students, they moved them up when they were promoted. The judges appoint themselves. Well, who should appoint them?
I don't know.
There was a period of time where the king did it and he didn't like their ruling, so he killed them all. But other than that, the way it was supposed to be was that they were established in the courts. They were sitting there, and then they were moved up, and they kept being moved up. When they were sitting they were moved up when they gave a good answer. They came on time enough times. They participated.
What is the Sanhedrin compared to this?
The Sanhedrin was the Supreme Court.
Right.
That was the Supreme
That was
Court.
the religious court.
But it was everything. There's no difference. But they also had local courts. Each tribe had their own Supreme Court. Each city had its own court. And it's already listed in last week's portion that that there was a series of court system. Yisro suggested there was each 10 people needed one officer, each 100 needed officers. So they had a system, which I don't know if was ever implemented, but you need to have a court. You need to have a court system in the Sanhedrin. Okay. If you'll and then if an ox or a donkey will fall in, Rashi says, the same will applies to any cattle or beast. Wherever it says an ox or a donkey, Analom din oto shor mishabes. So this is also from the Gemara in Baba Kama. Wherever it says an ox or a donkey, we learn out from an ox from Shabbos. Just like on Shabbos, it says so that your ox or your donkey can rest. So too, every animal and wild animals like an ox. As it states in another place, in all your animals. So to here also all your animals. Basically, it means all your animals, not just the ox or the donkey. Just like on Shabbos, all your animals cannot work. So too during the week. So too when it comes to if you cause damage to any animal. But not to a human being. I'm sorry?
Sorry, that answers your question yesterday about the dog.
What was my question yesterday?
You said that if a dog that's a pet damages somebody, that they're exactly the same ruling of shor chamor.
Yeah, but here this was for sure. But here the point we're saying is if they're damaged, that if the ox or a donkey or any other animal falls into the pit and gets damaged, like for example a horse falls in and breaks its leg. So okay, let's stop here. We'll have a mincha here. Just want to say a big announcement that tomorrow